Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rajesh Parte, Company Secretary and Compliance Officer of the company. Dr. Bernhard Straub, Chairman of the company, has occupied the chair. He is joining the meeting from Germany. With the unanimous consent of the directors attending the meeting, I request Mr. S.V. Ranganath to occupy the chair in case, due to technical glitch, unavoidable circumstances, Dr. Bernhard Straub fails to continue with the meeting.
I agree.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree.
Agreed.
Thank you, directors. Yeah, thank you. I extend you a warm welcome to the 68th annual general meeting of your company through video conferencing and other audiovisual means. At the outset, in the light of pandemic COVID-19, our thoughts are with those affected by the coronavirus around the globe and wish you and your loved one health and safety. In compliance with the provisions of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, General Circulars dated 5th May 2020 and 8th April 2020, read with April 13, 2020, respectively, and SEBI Circular dated 12th May 2020, the company has sent the notice of annual general meeting along with the annual report only by email to its shareholders. This meeting is being conducted through video conferencing without the physical presence of the members at a common venue. However, the proceedings of this meeting shall be deemed to be conducted at the registered office of the company. It is now 3 p.m. and the requisite quorum is present. I call the 60th annual general meeting of Bosch Limited to order. Before we begin the proceedings, I would bring to your attention the common instructions which are already communicated to the members in the notice. Request the members to adhere to the same for smooth functioning of the meeting. Representations under section 113 of the Companies Act have been received in respect of 70.54% of the paid up share capital of the company from promoters and promoter group. The independent auditor's report, secretarial auditor report, and the necessary statutory registers are available for inspection in electronic mode. Before we commence the proceedings of the meeting, I would like to welcome to the members of the board of directors who have participated through video conference from their respective locations. For benefit of members, I request the members of the board, as I call out, to identify themselves and the locations from where they are participating. I request Dr. Bernhard Straub to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bernhard Straub, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the company, participating in the meeting from Germany. I am a member of the Audit Committee, the Stakeholder Relations Committee, and the Nomination and Remuneration Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Tilorer.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Tiroler. I'm participating in the meeting from our headquarters here in Stuttgart, and the transfer of video is perfect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bernhard Steinrucke.
I'm Bernhard Steinrucke. I'm participating in the meeting from my residence in Mumbai, and I'm a member of the board. I'm the chairman of the Remuneration and Nomination Committee and also the other committees.
Yeah, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt.
Good afternoon, shareholders. I am Bhaskar Bhatt, independent director of the company, participating in this meeting from the registered office of the company at Bangalore. I am the chairman of the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee and member of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, Stakeholders Relationship Committee, and Audit Committee. Namaskar.
Yeah, Mr. S.V. Ranganath.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am S.V. Ranganath, independent director of the company, participating in the meeting from the registered office of the company at Bengaluru. I am the chairman of the Audit Committee and member of the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. Thank you. Namaskar.
Ms. Hema Ravichandar.
Namaste. I am Hema Ravichandar. I am an independent director of the company, participating in the meeting from my residence in Bangalore. I am the chairperson of the Stakeholders Relationship Committee and member of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, Audit Committee, and the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee.
Dr. Gopichand Katragadda.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm participating in this AGM from my residence in Whitefield. I am an independent director for Bosch. I am a committee member on the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee, as well as the Stakeholder Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya.
Namaskara. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Soumitra Bhattacharya, Managing Director of Bosch Limited. I'm speaking from the registered office of the company. I'm a member of the Stakeholder Relationship Committee, Corporate Social Responsibility Committee, as well as the Risk Management Committee.
Mr. Srinivasan.
Namaskaram. I am S.C. Srinivasan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Executive Director and CFO of the company, participating in the meeting from the registered office of the company at Bangalore. I am a member of the Risk Management Committee. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Sandeep Neelamangala.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sandeep N, alternate director to Mr. Peter Tirola, designated as a whole-time director of the company, participating in this meeting from the registered office of the company at Bangalore. I am a member of the Risk Management Committee.
Yeah, apart from the directors, members of senior management team of the company are also participating in the meeting. Representatives of Messrs. Deloitte, Huskin & Sales, LLP, the statutory auditors, and Mr. Sachin Bhagwat, the secretarial auditor of the company, are also participating through video conference. Since this AGM is being held through VC, the facility for appointment of proxy by the members was not available for this AGM. The register of directors and key managerial persons and their shareholding maintained under Section 170 of the Companies Act 2013, the register of contracts or arrangements in which directors are interested maintained under Section 189 of the Companies Act 2013 were made available for inspection in electronic mode to every member who have made specific requests for inspection by sending an email to the company. In compliance with the MCA circulars, the company had on 22nd July 2020 issued a notice by way of an advertisement in Business Standard and in Kannada Prabha informing that the 68th annual general meeting shall be held through video conference, and notice of the AGM along with the annual report for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 shall be sent to the members only in electronic mode on their registered email address. In the said notice, the company had also provided the manner in which the members who have not registered their email address can register the same. A facility was provided to all the members whose email addresses were not registered to register the same for limited purpose of receiving the AGM notice, the annual report, and the login credentials for participating and voting at the AGM. The notice of the AGM along with the annual report for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 were sent to the members on their registered email address on 1st August 2020. The notice of the AGM along with the annual report has been uploaded on the website of the company and on the website of the stock exchanges. Thus, the company has indeed made all efforts feasible under circumstances for enabling members to participate and vote on the items being considered in this AGM. The notice of the AGM setting out the ordinary and special business to be transacted, the explanatory statement thereto, along with the annual report of the company for the financial year ended 31st March 2020, which inter alia comprises the standalone and consolidated financial statements of the company for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 and the report of the Board of Directors, auditors report thereon, were circulated to the members in advance. I consider the same as read. The statutory auditor's report on the financial statements of the company for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 and the secretarial audit report for the said period do not contain any qualification, observations or comments on financial transactions or matters which have adverse effect on the functioning of the company. Hence, the same need not be read at this annual general meeting. I would like to inform you that as per the provisions of Section 108 of the Companies Act 2013 and the rules made thereunder and Regulation 44 of the SEBI LODR regulation, your company had provided the facility of remote voting for ensuring wide participation of the members and to enable them to cast their vote electronically. as per the timelines mentioned in the notice of the AGM, the remote e-voting has already concluded at 5 p.m. yesterday. Members attending the AGM who have not already casted their votes by remote e-voting shall be able to cast their vote electronically during the meeting. E-voting during the AGM is integrated with the VC platform and no separate login is required for the same. Members can cast their vote and at the same time continue to participate in the proceedings of the meeting. Mr. Pramod SM of BMP and Company, Practicing Company Secretary, has been appointed as the scrutinizer to scrutinize the remote e-voting process in a fair and transparent manner. Mr. Pramod is also present for the meeting. The flow of AGM proceedings is as follows. First, there will be a chairman's speech. Thereafter, we will move to the items of business to be transacted at this AGM, when the window for e-voting shall also be activated. Thereafter, we will move to our discussions and question and answer session. The members who have registered as speakers shall be able to express their views during this session. Now I request the chairman to proceed with his speech. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you very much. Dear shareholders, before I commence my speech, I would like to briefly introduce the shareholders our esteemed board of directors present. Mr. Peter Tyroler is our non-executive, non-independent director. Mr. Tyroler is the member of the Global Board of Management, Robert Bosch GmbH, and is also responsible in this function for Bosch Asia Pacific region. Mr. Bernhard Steinrücke is our independent director. Mr. Steinrücke is the Director General of the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce and was the former co-CEO of Deutsche Bank India. Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt is our independent director. Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt is the board of director of Tata Sons Limited and formerly managing director of Titan Company Limited. Mr. S.V. Ranganath is also our independent director. Mr. S.V. Ranganath belongs to the Indian Administrative Service, from where he retired after a long and successful tenure as Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka. Ms. Hema Ravichandar is our independent director. Ms. Ravichandar, until 2005, was the global head of human resources for Infosys Technologies. She currently advises several Indian and multinational corporations and is on the board of several companies. Mr. Gopichand Katragada is our independent director. Dr. Katragada was the former Group Chief Technology Officer and Innovation Head of Tata Sons. He is currently an entrepreneur in the IT industry. Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya, Managing Director of Bosch Limited and also President for the Bosch Group in India. Mr. Jan Oliver Röhrl, Joint Managing Director of Bosch Limited and also our Chief Technical Officer. Mr. S.C. Srinivasan, Director of Bosch Limited and also our Chief Financial Officer. And finally, Mr. Sandeep Nelamangala, Director of Bosch Limited and also our Head of OE Sales. This is the team of the Board of Directors that presents our company. Thank you very much. Now I would like to proceed with my speech. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me and a matter of immense pride to address you all as the newly appointed chairman of Bosch Limited. As this is the first time I'm addressing you in this capacity, I would like to take a moment to introduce myself. I have been associated with Bosch for over 30 years and have had a good amount of experience also in India, having worked at the Naganatapura plant for 4 years from 1996 to 1999 as commercial plant manager. Currently, I'm the president of Electrical Drives in Bühlertal, Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going through extraordinary times with a once-in-a-generation crisis affecting the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has been disruptive in every conceivable socio-economic sphere. But in a crisis of this magnitude, your health and safety has been a paramount concern of us. My fellow board members and I hope each of you and your families are safe, and to further ensure your safety, we are conducting the 68th Annual General Meeting through a digital platform. We hope the notice convening the meeting, the director's report, and the audited accounts for the year 2019 to 20 reached you on time. The financial year 2019 to 20 has been full of turmoil. It is a good thing that we have some clarity on Brexit. But on the other hand, two of the world's largest economies, the United States and China, are still locked in a bitter trade battle. The uncertainty and volatility does not end there. While China was celebrating 70 years of Communist Party rule, Hong Kong experienced one of its most violent and chaotic days due to the protests. And earlier this year, the COVID-19 pandemic brought most of the world to a virtual standstill. Countries are even now experiencing a second wave of infections, and this is likely to continue well into the new year, according to experts. Thus, securing the future has become imperative, and at Bosch, we had embarked on this transformation journey much in advance. In this year's annual report, we emphasize on this theme. The future is now. Let's take a look at a short video depicting our efforts towards ensuring a sustainable and brighter future. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, in my speech today, I will take you through the economic and market situation, the performance of your company during the year under review, and the outlook for the current year. The global economy is expected to contract sharply by a negative 4.5% in calendar year 2020. This economic shock, while falling well short of a Great Depression, even with massive monetary and fiscal policy intervention, still results in increased unemployment, putting a major strain on national treasuries for some time. Outside of China, GDP growth bottomed in the first quarter of 2020, with the second quarter doing a trench in the growth rate cycle for all economies. Activity should improve in the second half of 2020 with eased lockdowns leading to pent-up demand, but the pace of growth will likely differ amongst economies. The Indian economy is expected to see the sharpest contraction in 40 years. And as reports suggest, India's GDP for the financial year 2020 to 2021 will be negative 3.5 to 5%. This is primarily due to two factors: rising COVID infections, despite one of the world's strictest lockdowns, which has resulted in flattening industrial activity, and secondly, weak fiscal stimulus, resulting in lower inclination to consume, especially as credit growth remains muted and banks are saddled with rising bad loans. At the same time, the rural areas of the country are expected to lead the demand recovery, driven by better minimum support prices for the upcoming Kharif harvest to increased MNREGA spends in allied business activities. Also, the rural areas have seen lesser impact of COVID as compared to the urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, 2019-20 was a challenging year for the Indian automotive industry. Firstly, there was legislation change from Bharat Stage 4 to Bharat Stage 6, and secondly, a high base was set by 2018-19 volumes, which was an exceptionally good year for the Indian automotive industry. It is estimated that the automotive industry to come back in 4 to 5 years from 2018-19, unless there are direct stimulus by Government of India like the scrappage policy or GSE rationalization. Overall, the Indian automotive market, including two-wheelers, shrank by 15%. Heavy commercial vehicles and light commercial vehicles shrank by 47% and 22% respectively. Demand 2019 and 20 was suppressed by increased axle norms introduced in July 2018 and a high base in 2018-19. Due to the new legislation, OEMs turned cautious towards obsolescence of vehicles and supplier parts inventory. On Indian passenger car production, which constitutes a significant portion of around 69% in terms of total volume of the Indian automotive market, has seen a degrowth of 15%. At the same time, the market witnessed new entrants like MG and Kia launching passenger cars in utility vehicle space. The tractor market degrew by 15%, demand subdued by excessive rains affecting the yield of crops and cautious lending due to rising non-performing assets in NBFCs. The three-wheeler production shrank by 11% on a higher base year. The two-wheeler market has reduced by 14% during the year, impacted by cost escalations due to mandatory 3 to 5 years insurance requirement and other safety standards. At the same time, the two-wheeler market, export market achieved double-digit growth of 11%, aided by strong demand from African and Latin American countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I now turn to the performance of your company in 2019-2020. Your company has posted total revenue from operations of 98,460 million rupees in 2019-20, thus registering a decline of 18.6% from 2018-19 on a comparable basis. The domestic revenue from operations of your company declined by 19.8%, whereas export revenues declined by only 3.6%. The Mobility Solutions business, which constitutes 83% of net sales for 2019-20, posted a decline of 24.4% over the previous year. The business beyond mobility, comprising of industrial technology, consumer goods, and energy and building technology, witnessed a decline of 14.4% in sales over the previous year. The company's exports, bulk of which were to Germany, China, Brazil, Bangladesh, and Malaysia, decreased by approximately 21% as compared to previous year in business beyond mobility. Also, the closure of thermo technology business led to a decline of 170 million rupees in export sales. Total export sales from mobility and non-mobility amounted to 7,869 million rupees, accounting for 8.8% of your company's total sales. During the financial year, there has been a decline in revenue in all quarters, which is in line with the automotive market performance. Income from services during the year 2019-20 was 5,705 million rupees as against 2,587 million rupees in the previous year. Development projects with our customers were a major contributor to this increase. I'd like to show now share some insights into the performance of the business divisions. The powertrain system business declined by 24.2% compared to the previous year. Your company's automotive aftermarket division is the largest independent aftermarket network in India. It declined by 11.5% in the current year. The consumer goods segment, comprising power tools, witnessed a decline of 3.8%. Within the energy and building technology division, the building technology business experienced a decline of 5.7%. Bosch Energy and Building Solutions divisions posted a decline of 60% over the previous year. In line with the overall global Bosch strategy and after obtaining the approval of shareholders for the sale of packaging business, your company executed the business transfer agreement on October 1st, 2019, and transferred the business of packaging by way of a slump sale to Robert Bosch Packaging Technology India Private Limited. Consequently, profit before tax and profit after tax for packaging business have been disclosed separately as discontinued operation. Let's now look at other key financial indicators. Material costs as percentage of revenue from operations has decreased by 1.3%. Various cost reduction measures undertaken across the value chain, including with suppliers, contributed to this reduction. There has been a decrease in the personnel cost by 6.1% as compared to the previous year, mainly as a result of various transformation and restructuring projects, including short-term measures. During the year, other expenses have reduced by 6.5%. This is due to projects like Samriddhi, mainly driving zero-based spending culture as part of our transformation projects. Capital expenditure of the company in 2019-20 was 3,959 million rupees. Depreciation charges have decreased by 4.7% during the year due to reduction in new investments. Profit before tax without exceptional items as a percentage of revenue from operations stood at 16.6% as compared to 19.3% in the previous financial year. One-time exceptional items of 7,167 million rupees was towards transformational projects, including asset impairment. The profit after tax, after above exceptional items, is 6.6% as against 13.2% last year. The profit after tax on comparable basis is 13.0%, without the restructuring provision as mentioned above. We have adopted the benefit of lower tax rate of 25.2%, including surcharge offered in the financial bill for the financial year 2019 to 20. The impact of this on the deferred tax asset has been recognized in the profit and loss as a separate item. The company, in addition to the standalone financial statement, has also compared consolidated financial statement of your company and its only subsidiary, Myco Trading Private Limited, its only associate, NewTech Filter India Private Limited, and its only joint venture, Prevo Automotive Private Limited. There's no material impact of consolidation on the financial statement of your company. Robert Bosch India Manufacturing and Technology Private Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of Bosch Limited, has been incorporated on May 31st, 2020, for the purpose of carrying out businesses of manufacturing, assembly and service in the area of automotive, industrial, consumer goods, energy and building sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, now I come to the dividend proposal for the year 2019-20. The Board of Directors has recommended a dividend of 105 rupees per share for the financial year 2019-20, compared to the final dividend of 105 rupees per share for the previous year. As you are aware, as per the Income Tax Act of 1961, as amended by the Finance Act of 2020, dividends paid or distributed by a company after April 1st, 2020 shall be taxable in the hands of the shareholders. The company shall therefore be required to deduct tax at source at the time of making the payment of the said dividend declared at prescribed rates, plus applicable surcharge and cess as notified from time to time. The total dividend payout ratio comes to 47.7% as against 19.4% in the previous financial year. I now will give a brief overview of how your company has performed in the first quarter of the financial year 2020-21. The countrywide lockdown during April and May 2020 and scattered lockdowns in the states thereafter have had a major impact on the sales volume across the auto industry. The automotive market production declined by 78.4% as compared to the comparable quarter in the previous year. Total revenue from operations was 9,915 million rupees, a decline of 64% over the same period of the previous year. All the segments have recorded a decline except the two-wheeler business, which posted a positive growth of 25.7%. In the quarter ended June 2020, the company posted a loss before tax before exceptional items of 33 million rupees as compared to 5,068 million rupees profit before tax in April-June 2019. As a percentage of total revenue from operations, loss before tax without exceptional items stood at 0.3% in the current quarter as compared to profit before tax of 18.4% in the corresponding quarter of 2019. Profit after tax before exceptional items stood at 2.7%. During the quarter, the company has made a provision of 1,972 million rupees towards various restructuring and transformational projects and disclosed it as an exceptional item. Loss before tax after exceptional item stands at 2,005 million rupees, which is 20.2% of total revenue from operations. Loss after tax stood at 1,205 million rupees, which is 12.1% of total revenue from operations. The downward trend in the automotive segment continues in the backdrop of cyclical and structural changes accompanied by the added pressure of the COVID-19 pandemic. The nationwide lockdown, followed by cluster-wise lockdowns and uncertainties, have left the first quarter financial year seeing the deepest decline ever. The tractor market is witnessing a bounce back to normal levels, followed by two-wheeler and passenger cars. Light commercial vehicles also are showing signs of revival, while the heavy commercial vehicle industry has not yet shown any signs of revival. Against this backdrop, the automotive sector is expected to show degrowth for the financial year 2020-21. In this context, it is important that the central government comes up soon with a special comprehensive stimulus package for the automotive sector. Investments in construction activities and infrastructure has to continue to boost the demand side. Your company's transformation strategy to make it fit for the future includes the 3R project: restructure, reskill, redeploy, and devising new innovations and solutions that realize the vision of building a truly Atma-Nirbhar Bharat. Looking at manufacturing excellence, Bosch India has always believed that digitization and digitalization is the way ahead for achieving manufacturing excellence and connected industry. We will continue our journey by connecting machines and services in real time for higher transparency and decision-making from the top floor to the shop floor. Execution and efficiency. Our manufacturing plants with more than 200 projects have already deployed standard connected solutions for sustainability, improving plant efficiency and effectiveness. Bosch always looked for opportunity to bring new products to market. With the introduction of Phantom, a new industrial IoT, old machines can be connected to the Internet of Things platform for real-time reports for improving plant efficiency. More than 100 numbers of these projects have been deployed in small and medium enterprises and our business partners. And finally, upskilling. In December 2019, Bosch India partnered with external institutional bodies like NTTF, MTMA, and CII, among others, for sharing customized training programs on connected industry for upskilling industrial associates. Till date, we have trained more than 400 delegates across India. Our journey continues towards creating the factory of the future with, number one, introduction of artificial intelligence-based solutions. Number two, developing lighthouse projects for benchmarking. And number three, continuous digital upskilling programs for our associates. Turning to the Bosch Group. The Bosch Group sales were around 77.7 billion euros, approximately 630,000 crores rupees. Innovation remains at the core of all Bosch initiatives, and hence the group continues to invest in research and development. The annual research and development expenditure stood at around 6 billion euros, approximately 7.8% of the total sales revenue. The mobility solutions business sector again accounted for the largest share of research and development costs in 2019 at 72%, compared to previous year at 75%. We cannot overlook the slowdown brought by the pandemic, but beyond that, the industry is at the threshold of a major technological transformation. Technologies affecting electrical and renewable fuel-based mobility solutions are all set to usher in sweeping change across the industry. The Internet of Things in the coming years is going to transform the automotive experience like never before. This not only means new products and solutions, but new ways of partnerships and new ways of doing business. India, being home to Bosch's largest R&D facility outside Germany, clearly expresses this outlook of the company. With traveling and social contact restrictions set to continue for months to come, the relevance of digital platforms to connect for business to customer, and customer to product is now all the more important. During the last year, Bosch Limited has rolled out multiple solutions to reach, to connect, and to integrate digitally. This radical shift from traditional way of operating is one of the many signs to demonstrate the future readiness of your company. In addition, we have to be responsible in combating adverse climate change. It is not too late to achieve the climate action targets, but only if major enterprises such as Bosch follow through on their commitments with on-the-ground implementation. This will cost money, but it will also create new business, and we are determined to make our 400+ locations worldwide carbon neutral by end of 2020. Looking at corporate social responsibility. It has been another deeply fulfilling year for Bosch Limited in giving back to society. Vocational training and skill development program Bridge celebrated its 7th anniversary. Through this program, underprivileged youth of the country who opt out of the higher education system get trained in a short-term job-oriented course. We have trained and helped in employing 30,000 youth through this program over the last 7 years, which is now offered through 466 centers. The program also won IFCCI CSR Best Skill Development Award and also NHRDN Best CSR Program of the Year, amongst other accolades. All our plants support local communities through holistic village development programs and also run neighborhood community welfare projects in a sustainable and scalable mode. We responded to the COVID crisis very early and supported the government's effort by supplying masks and sanitizers. In addition to a contribution of 5 crores rupees to the Prime Minister's Care Fund. Our efforts to fight COVID-19 continue. Bosch has set up a mask manufacturing automated line, taken up the task of repairing non-functional ventilators in hospitals, training of paramedics, and re-employment of migrant workers. It is time for us to relook at the way we operate and to reflect on it. The need of the hour is to overcome the huge challenges ahead of us by exhibiting our future preparedness. The pandemic and the lockdown that followed disrupted established supply chains and showed the need for the industry as a whole to be more flexible and agile in its processes. The difficulties are not expected to abate anytime soon, and it will take a few years for the industry to recover completely. It is inevitable that the current situation will have a less than favorable effect on our production and growth. We believe that it will take at least 4 to 5 years for the auto industry in India to get back to normal. We may have to shift our gears down to tackle rough roads, but our engines of growth and our clear vision of the future will take us steadily forward. We are optimistic of our approach because we have an in-depth experience in a wide range of areas, varying from advanced mobility solution to Internet of Things implementations in consumer business. Even in these tough times, we have been able to see some wins in terms of business, which should give us cause for optimism. With the Bharat Stage 6 introduction in April, Bosch has so far managed more than 127 acquisitions across all segments. Over 5 lakh man-hours have been invested in the course of many months, and I would like to congratulate all colleagues of the Bosch India family who made this possible. Bosch Limited is partnering with AMP Solar Technology Private Limited and Hinduja Renewable Energy Private Limited to buy solar power for use in its facilities in the state of Karnataka and Maharashtra, respectively. Bosch is taking a minority stake in the power projects in line with the requirements of captive power generation rules of the respective states. With these engagements, there would be a substantial increase in Bosch India's share in green energy. The global CO2 target for 2020 will be achieved. In India, we have already neutralized our carbon footprints in the majority of our plants. These have been difficult months for the world. We have had to make drastic changes to the way we have been living with very little advance warning. The new way of working has meant that we have had to juggle both personal and work commitments with greater effort. While the times are tough, your company believes that through collective efforts and dedication, we will come through more resilient and stronger than ever before. I would like to personally express my sincere gratitude to the shareholders, the Bosch Board of Members, Government of India, and the state government of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Rajasthan for their continued support. My sincere thanks to our valued customers, suppliers, bankers, financial institutions, and our shareholders for the trust and confidence they have in our company. My special thanks and deep appreciation go to the employees of your company at all levels for their hard work, their dedication, and continued commitment. Last but not least, I also would like to place on record many thanks to my colleagues on the board for their valuable guidance, contributions, and support to me as chairman. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I will now resume the proceedings. Now I would like to briefly explain the resolutions proposed to be passed at the AGM before we move to the questions and answer session. I request Mr. Rajesh Parte, Company Secretary and Compliance Officer, to briefly explain the resolutions proposed to be passed at the AGM. Mr. Parte, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Item number 1 of the notice relates to approval of the audited financial statements, standalone and consolidated, for the financial year ended 31st March 2020, together with the report of the Board of Directors and auditors thereon. As stated earlier, the auditors' reports are unmodified. The resolution at item number 1 of the notice is set for your approval as an ordinary resolution. Item number 2 relates to approval of dividend of rupees 105 per share. The board has recommended a dividend of rupees 105 for the financial year 1920. The total payout ratio is 47.6% in 2019-20 compared to 23.4% in the year 2018-19. The resolution at item number 2 of the notice is set forth for your approval as an ordinary resolution. Item number 3 of the notice relates to reappointment of directors liable to retire by rotation. 1/3 of the total number of directors, excluding independent directors, are liable to retire by rotation at each AGM. Accordingly, Mr. Peter Tiroral retires at this AGM and seek reappointment. The resolution at item number 3 of the notice is set forth for your approval as an ordinary resolution. Item number 4 relates to reappointment of Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya as a managing director of the company for a further period of 2 years from 1st July 2020 to 30th June 2022. Mr. Sumitra Bhattacharya is a chartered accountant. He had also held the position of CFO and board member of Bosch Limited since 2011 to 2018. The resolution at item number 4 of the notice is set forth for your approval as a special resolution. Item number 5 relates to redesignation of Mr. Jan Oliver Rohel as a joint managing director of the company with effect from 1st January 2020 to 31st December 2020. Mr. Rohel is a mechanical engineer who graduated from Karlsruhe Technical University. The resolution at item number 5 of the notice is set forth for your approval as a special resolution. Item number 6 relates to appointment of Mr. S.C. Srinivasan as a director of the company, designated as an executive director and chief financial officer of the company with effect from 1st January 2020. Mr. Srinivasan was appointed as an additional director of the company with effect from January 1st, 2020, and he holds office up to this annual general meeting. Mr. Srinivasan is a chartered accountant with over 2 decades of experience in relevant fields. The resolution at item number 6 of the notice is set forth for your approval as a special resolution. Item number 7 relates to appointment of Mr. Sandeep Neelamangala as an alternate director to Mr. Peter Tiroler with effect from so-and-so and designated as a whole-time director of the company for a period of 3 years with effect from 1st January 2020 to 31st December 2022. Mr. Sandeep is a mechanical engineer who graduated from the University of Mysore. The resolution at item number 7 of the notice is set forth for your approval as a special resolution. Dr. Bernard Straub, chairman, is interested in item number 8 of the notice as it pertains to his own appointment as non-executive director of the company. With the unanimous consent of the directors attending this meeting, I request Mr. S.V. Ranganath to occupy the chair during the consideration of item number 8.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you, Chairman. Request Rajesh to proceed further.
Yeah. Item number 8 relates to appointment of Dr. Bernard Straub as a director of the company. Dr. Bernard Straub was appointed as an additional director of the company with effect from 24th August 2019, and he holds office up to this annual general meeting. Dr. Straub studied industrial engineering at Karlsruhe University and holds a doctorate in philosophy. He is the president of Electrical Drives in Stuttgart, Germany. The resolution at item number 8 of the notice is set forth for your approval as an ordinary resolution.
I request Dr. Bernard Straub to occupy the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ranganath. Request Rajesh to proceed.
Yeah. Item number 9 relates to remuneration payable to the cost auditors, Mrs. Rao Murthy and Associates. The board of directors have fixed a remuneration of rupees 6 lakhs for conducting audit of the cost accounting records for the financial year 2021. In terms of section 148 of the Act, remuneration payable to cost auditors is required to be ratified by the shareholders. The resolution at item number 9 is set forth for your approval as an ordinary resolution. The window for electronic voting shall remain open till 15 minutes post conclusion of question and answer session. Thereafter, the same shall be closed. Members may choose to vote now. All the questions issued before the AGM and the questions which may be asked by members who have registered as speakers will be responded after all the speakers have completed expressing their views or asking their queries. A list of speakers has already been prepared along with the queue number. Before I call on those who wish to speak on the proposed resolution, I request you to be brief and avoid being repetitive. Also, in the interest of all present, I request you to strictly restrict, limit only to the points arising out of agenda items. I request the members to complete their views within 3 minutes to enable other speakers to express their views. I will press a bell after 2.30 minutes as a signal to the speakers so that they can conclude their speech in next 30 seconds, after which the speaker shall be muted to allow other speakers to continue his speech. I request the moderator to unmute the speakers in the order of their names. So, moderator, I request you unmute Mr. Rangan from Chennai, the first shareholder.
Yes, Mr. Rangan, you can present yourself.
Okay. You are able to hear, no, sir?
Yes, we can able to hear.
Okay. Now, first point on the policy of the future of the company, I'll note. Next, second, the balance sheet. Now, the future in the balance sheet, you have stated that by 2030 only, that only 20% of the vehicles is going to be electric. Now, according to you, what are the plans you have made for the ensuing year? Like our Serum Institute have made, whatever that vaccine they have prepared and kept it ready. Even if it goes waste, they are prepared to take a one time off. Like that, have you made it? So all of a sudden, suppose electric vehicle is going to be started like that. You have got all the machinery, everything ready, so that it will be put in place. You have got the plan B, plan C, like that, something you have made like that. Because naturally, you are one of the top companies in the world in the automotive. Definitely, I think you should have made all these arrangements. Can you just give me a brief on about it? Regarding the balance sheet, I found, see, last year, last 4 years, it has been on the decline. Now you say your payout has been more. What is the distribution policy of the company? Now the question is that in the half year, in the quarter, on the final year, that fourth quarter, in the whatever you are giving to the BSE, I think it should be more very clear, because it is not divided between the lines. It is the report is given in a very light manner. It should be more visible. A company of our stature should see what other top companies have presented. It is not at all very clear. What I'm telling you, between the lines, you should put the lines, everything, and should be very audible. Now, on the expenses side, I would like you to throw more detail on 5, 6, 7, where the write-off thing is there. No, what is the right? When I go to the write-off on the column 5, nothing is explained there. You please state that. Even in the financial disclosure, in discussion for 10 years, so much space, only half space has been vacant on the page 60. Why it is like that? You should clearly put out what is the depreciation, what is the write-off, what is the payout ratio, what is the dividend. It's a 10 years, it should be pakka, it should be one place where shareholders can see. You should be transparent and appear to be transparent as well. I'm telling you, you should put more stress, concentrate on what the shareholders wanted. Because after all, once in a year only we meet like that. Please be very clear on the subject actually and print it actually. Because very difficult to find out very spot, only about 10 years plans, you are giving only about 7, 8, 10 columns like that. No, it should be detailed manner, I'm telling you. So that only when any doubt is there, then I will go into the balance sheet. Okay? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rangan. Mr. Moderator, request Mrs. Patel to unmute. Patel from Mumbai.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon to everyone, the Board of Directors, the KMPs, and the management team of Bosch Limited. I'm Mr. Patel from Bombay. On the outset, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak at this AGM. Being a resident of Bombay and to travel to Bangalore to attend the AGM for Bosch is a bit difficult. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. I thank Mr. Rajesh Pathare, who was from M&M and has joined Bosch. Thank you.
Mr. Patel, you can continue.
Yes, the line got muted. I'm sorry. I also thank Mr. Prakash Venkataraman from the secretarial team. He has been very helpful in providing all the details when required. I thank you, Mr. Prakash. Now, I would like to raise few questions and comments. When does the promoter plan to increase the stake in the company to 75%? The promoters can hold 75% stake in the company. So when do you plan to increase the stake to 75% in Bosch India? How does the management propose to utilize the cash and cash balance of the company? Our cash and cash balance have increased significantly. How do you propose to utilize the cash and cash balance? What purpose? It brings pleasure to note that the company has held shares in HDFC Limited, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank. May I request the management to buy shares of companies like TCS, Infosys, Oracle, and other companies which also are good dividend-paying companies and stable stocks, So we can utilize our cash and cash balance to purchase those shares as well. So when our other divisions of electric mobility or mobility division does not perform well, the dividends from these companies help us to gain some income. I even take the audacity to say that I request that if we do not pay dividend for a couple of years, but invest that dividend amount also in those companies, it will reap us good benefits in future. Your aim for electric mobility is very amazing, and I wanted to know, is there any tie-up with automobile company in India? Are there any potential companies in mind for further development? Did we supply our major components for Bajaj Chetak electric scooters? Did Bosch provide any components for Bajaj Chetak electric scooter? What are our margins in Bosch Power Tools? Is venture profitable? Are your security cams available in B2C segment, wherein we as individual retail customers can even buy Bosch cameras, security cameras? Will the company see huge impact due to less mobility this year as well because of COVID? And will it also lead to fall in revenue profit financial year 2021 and 2022? Appreciate our association wherein we had done solar powers and systems with them. It was a pleasure to read about it. I appreciate the management. I wanted to know what is the cost, revenue and profit per employee. Request if you could provide and profit breakup in terms of value and percentage mobility, automobile market, automobile aftermarket, consumer goods, energy and building solutions. We have had a CSR contribution in excess of what was required. I appreciate the CSR team, the committee for going beyond the call of duty and doing CSR. I even thank Mr. Bernard Straub, who has provided a presentation in such a manner that I feel that I was in an investor's presentation rather than a shareholder's presentation. The detailing of each and everything of your businesses was very good. Thank you so much for investing so much time to even enlighten us, sir. It really means a lot for a retail shareholder to know more about the company. I thank you for your time. Thank you. These were my questions from my end.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Patel. Moderator, please unmute Mr. Sadanand Shastri from Bangalore.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. I am Sadananda Shastri from Bangalore. My number is 11702201. Sir, first of all, to be frank with you, this video conference is fit for nothing. Neither we can convey you, nor you can reach us. It is very difficult also to study your report in detail in the absence of physical book or a hard copy. I have minimized my questions in this regard. Sir, as far as your currency is concerned, which it is depicted in your annual report, I fail to understand what it is that. That is meow, MIO, cat voice, and TINR. What is that? I do not know. Anyway, I will convey in millions that you can decode it in your own language. Sir, as I last year I said that the exhausting of fuel and oil is imminent. No alternative or other fuel other than solar energy is found out. Solar renewable energy is only the alternative, and it is environmental friendly also. So what is the stage you have reached to bring to the road your solar vehicles large in number? It is need of the hour and public are much awaited. Sir, in page number 12, you have said made for India, made in India, made by Bosch. Okay, these are all good slogans. Why you have forgotten that is our country's aim, make in India? Sir, Atmanirbhar is before you. Beware what amount of respect and regards on that from the company. Sir, in page number 8, a blue background para, you have uttered a word, Bosch India. Sir, we know only the Bosch company or Bosch Limited. But any other such concerns are there, that is Bosch India, Bosch Germany, Bosch Switzerland, etc. You please let us know, sir. Page number 34, 10 years performance. Sales and profit are in pathetic position. As far as the sales are concerned, we have gone back to 2013 year and profit is beyond 2010. Sir, COVID is not the reason 100%. Sir, page number 51. Your subsidiary, Myco Trading Limited, so-called erstwhile Bangalore Myco, is under loss. It is a prestigious concern of Kannadigas. They have sentimental feelings on it. Most of the ex-employees of Myco are members and shareholders of this Bosch Limited. Let there be a value for their fee. Why can't you upgrade it, sir? Page number 63. Another Prevo, P-R-E-B-O Automotive, also under the clutches of loss. What is the strategy you have adopted to uplift it? Page number 87. Operating profit in negative growth by 14,000 million. Exceptional item 7,167 towards structural and cyclical playing a vital role. Please enlighten us. Hello. Trade receivables. Related parties' dues are more, that you can recover it. But the rest of the things are very much unsecure. How do you restrict it from being to doubtful debts? Page 161. In miscellaneous, bad debts increased by 26 million. How do you restrict this one, sir? In page number 183, membership of board members. If management and the directors of the company or members of the other companies, naturally the efficiency dilutes and distributes. Hence only I see drastical reductions in all the fields from the company. Sir, why can't the company bring membership restrictions, multi-companies, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies? Lastly, I should thank Mr. Prakash who helped me and the other persons who have helped me to participate in it. Lastly, please avoid this video meeting which deprives minority shareholders from effective participation in the AGM. Good luck. See you next year. Only physical meeting in your HO premises. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Shastri, thank you very much. The next speaker, Mr. Ashok Gupta from Delhi. Okay, then let's move to Mr. Vigyan Srimal from Kolkata.
Mr. Chairman, sir, and member of the board, my investor friend, ladies and gentlemen, I am CA B.S. Srimal from Kolkata. I am extremely grateful to Sir Bernard for giving me this opportunity to interact in the proceeding of the AGM and share my views and suggestions. I would also like to take this opportunity to heartily welcome Sir Bernard as the chairman of the company, and I am sure under his dynamic guidance, the company will reach new height. I am sure Mr. Chairman would take it in proper perspective and would respond fully to the queries raised by us, sir. I am also thankful to my fellow investors who have taken their time out to actively participate at this AGM. The COVID-19 has thrown actually an opportunity for me to join the meeting on video conferencing. Sir, I am a shareholder of your company for the last 40 to 50 years, and this is the first time I am getting the opportunity to talk to you. And for that, I am grateful to the opportunity, and I believe this opportunity will continue in spite of a physical meeting, so that the shareholder residing outside Bengaluru can also participate. Sir, could you throw a light? What is the expenses conducting this virtual meeting vis-a-vis the physical meeting? I would also request you, sir, to let me know what is the total number of shareholders present in today's meeting. Sir, I would like to offer my thanks to the Chairman Bernard and his very efficient MD, Mr. Bhattacharya, and his management team for producing indeed a most wonderful result under the very challenging environment indeed. When we find there is a definite downward trend in the economy, and also rewarding the investor by way of reasonable payment of dividend. Having said so, sir, I would like to take up the dividend payout part, which is very dear to all the shareholders. The company has paid rupees 105 per equity share on the PAT of 5908 million, which works out to 47.4% only of the PAT. When the investors are facing huge cash crunch due to pandemic, I would also like to point out that the company like HUL has distributed 91% of its PAT to the shareholder and investor. Sir, another point which I would like to point out, that if you would have declared this dividend by way of interim dividend, the shareholder before March, it would have been a tax-free dividend in the hands of the shareholder. But now, as for the change of the Income Tax Act, it is taxable. And I would request that in future, kindly take into account the interim dividend part, which is very helpful to the shareholder. Sir, another point which comes to my notice is about the Companies Act provision, a very draconian provision of the Companies Act 13, where if the shareholder do not encash their dividend, they would also be liable to forfeiture of the shares. I would like to know from you, sir, what proactive actions has been initiated from the company's end so that this painful experience has not to be experienced by the shareholder. And here, if you can give me the total amount of unclaimed, unpaid dividend to date and action taken by the company. As an example, I would also request that this whole list could be hosted in the website of the company. Sir, I have few suggestions before I go to the account part. Sir, first of all, the figures in the balance sheet should be in crores, not in MIO, as the previous shareholder said, which is not fully understandable by the Indian shareholder. Even the company like HUL is publishing their balance sheet in crores, not in million. Another point, sir, I wanted if you could give us a short resume of all the directors so that we know the position of each and every director, of course, which has been very kindly given by our chairman in today's meeting. Another point, sir, the balance sheet I have seen is signed by 3 directors, which is quite legally tenable, I know, being a chartered accountant, but I believe if you sign by all the directors, it would get a great confidence from the minority shareholder at least. Sir, then I have certain queries from the balance sheet part. And another point in the suggestion, in the information page, there should be the email ID and phone number of all the registered office, secretary and RTA, which is helpful to the minority shareholder. Otherwise, they have to search out the whole balance sheet to find the email ID and phone number. And if this is a 210 pages of balance sheet, which is very difficult at this point in time to go through, although it covers a wealth of information. So if you can put some index, some device by which if we click in the index, the particular page will appear. Yes, sir. Now in the queries part, I would like to know what is your ratio of e-marketing sale versus retail sale. Then what is the percentage of renewable energy?
Mr. Vijay, considering the time constraint, request you to be brief and close at the earliest.
I do agree to you, sir, but this is a time of shareholder, and you have, as I understood, have only 7 shareholders who will talk to it. So kindly allow some time. And I have seen the HUL meeting conducting by Mr. Mehta. It continues up to 7:30. So please have patience. I would be obliged.
Yeah, request you to close in next 2 minutes, please.
I am. Sir, about the total energy consumption, I would like to know what is the percentage of renewable energy, and when you would feel that it will be 100% renewable energy basis. I would also like to know how many of your factory manufacturing outlets are working at present and reached a pre-COVID level. Sir, then a very much concern to the shareholders. If you see your 10 years result, it is really amazing. We are a company of 68 years old, and if you see, your turnover has increased not even double from last 10 years. And that is the result in almost all cases. I would like to know what steps you are envisaging in this direction. Even this sale is not covering the bare inflation rate of the company in India. You must see to it. Then when I go to the balance sheet in page 87, I see that your PAT is 5165 million. And out of that, other income itself is 5466 million, which works out that the company is at a loss on the manufacturing activity. Sir, are we a manufacturing company or a financial company? I fail to understand, sir, with all humilities. And the total investment made in different instruments is 40,207 million. As large as that, against a share capital of 295 million and revenue of 89,441 million. And the fixed asset is only 9279. Sir, it's time that we should have a retrospect of the whole affair of the company. Now our Prime Minister has declared Atmanirbhar, so we should take all advantage in this direction. And this is a very wrong signal to the shareholder that the manufacturing company's activity is not enough even to show a profit. I had many other points to discuss, but I think you are all constrained of time, so I would not like to take much more of your time. I would like to stop here. And thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. I hope you will take my word in a proper perspective and try to come out with a certain solution which will be beneficial to the minority shareholder of the company. Looking into your 68 years of existence in India, you should be more of items in your portfolio so that we earn more from manufacturing activity. Thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bigyan. Now we close the speaker session and I request the chairman to answer the questions. Over to you, chairman.
Thank you very much. We also received questions in writing, and I would like to ask my colleague Soumitra Bhattacharya, maybe if we can share this out. I would take over the written questions, and Soumitra, after I've done that, you would kindly answer to the questions that have been raised by the speakers.
Chairman, I will do it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm coming here to questions from Mr. Nitin Nerlikar. It's actually 5 questions from him. I read out the question. Question number 1, message from the shareholder. We in the family have been long-term small stakeholders in Bosch and have a very high regard for the management's competency and transparency. The last few years have been rather difficult for the company, and the environment for the auto business has worsened post-COVID. Just wanted to understand from the management the following points. How is the company planning to secure the business and cash flow against falling volumes? And more particularly when diesel, the largest contributor to revenues, is currently a disliked powertrain. Is the company taking effort to bring down the fixed cost or trying to convert some fixed cost into variable to justify the lower volumes? Where do you see Bosch progressing over the next 5 years against the fast changing landscape of the entire auto industry? So this is the question number 1. Yeah, dear Mr. Nitin Nerlikar, first let me answer your company's view and progress over the next 5 years in respect to the fast changing landscape in the auto industry. Bosch Limited has been an integral part of the Indian automotive landscape, dealing with supply and products, services and solutions for almost a century now, and being a global end-to-end solution provider. Since 2017, 127 Bharat Stage 6 projects have been executed in the two-wheelers, passenger car and commercial vehicle segment with major OEMs. While reducing the emissions of internal combustion engines significantly, we also invested heavily in developing near to zero emission, sustainable and energy efficient electromobility solutions. 2- and 3-wheelers will be the early adopters of electrification. This will gradually move towards fleet passenger cars. We expect that the internal combustion engine will continue to be the dominant technology in the remaining segments. Other key areas to focus emerging is around asset utilization and use of analytics in mobility. In respect to securing our business and cash flows due to a fall in volumes, your company has already implemented various transformation projects like zero-based budgeting, along with budgetary control measures. In addition, initiatives like Parinati and 3R, restructure, reskill, redeploy, approach us strongly towards creating continuous focus on the transformation. So your second question is the following. Bosch has undertaken significant capex over the last 5 to 6 years to grow the diesel business, which unfortunately may not contribute to the revenues in the future as planned. Would there be a significant capex write-off on account of this? The answer to your second question is, the company assesses at each balance sheet date whether there is any indication that an asset may be impaired. If such indication exists, we provide the impairment loss as per Indian accounting standard. At the same time, it is relevant to note that investment made in the last 5 to 6 years have not just been in the diesel area. We have made significant investments in new areas of mobility to propel the future growth. In 2030, we expect that 80% of the vehicles will still run on internal combustion engines in India. Your third question has been, what are the plans to increase the content per vehicle and remain cost competitive against rising competition in the changing technology in the auto industry? Bosch no longer has the monopoly which it enjoyed once. In fact, compared to other auto auxiliaries in India, Bosch has been a relative underperformer, Has this anything to do with loss of market share, if at all? What are the plans with regard to new product introductions? My answer to this is as follows. In respect to increase the content per vehicle, we introduce new products and remain cost competitive in our plans and have been doing the following. In order to increase content per vehicle, we are focused on system engineering in all areas of powertrain, automated driving, connected vehicle, and electrified areas in the automotive domain. This gives us a chance to use our automotive expertise and add value to the customer by providing a system rather than just individual components. Bosch has acquired many projects in Bharat Stage 6. We are present in multiple segments and are supporting the customer in meeting the upcoming regulations from the technology perspective. We are working with multiple customers on new solutions in the traditional areas as well as in the new areas with Project House electrification and Project House mobility solutions. Coming to your question number 4. Further, there are several unlisted companies of the Bosch Group in India. Why is the company not contemplating merger of all these unlisted auto businesses into the listed arm with another German company Schaeffler recently did in India? Our answer to this is the company and the group continuously evaluates and looks for any synergy between being created through any such merger of either business divisions or entities. You may recall that we had merged other 2 divisions, namely diesel systems and gasoline systems, into one consolidated powertrain systems in early 2018 within the entire entity of Bosch Limited. This integration had to bring synergy amongst the 2 divisions and enabled to standardize the processes and deployment of resources in a more productive manner. Coming to your question number 5. What are the board plans over the long term with regard to recently floated 100% subsidiary and also the new technology to be brought in under it? My answer to this is the Robert Bosch India Manufacturing and Technology Private Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of Bosch Limited, has been incorporated on May 31st, 2020 for the purpose of carrying out the business of manufacturing, assembly, and services in the area of automotive, industrial, consumer goods, energy, and building sectors. This company will focus on new products and technologies in the above business segments. This could mean and include in the area of electrification and mobility solutions. So there are questions from a second shareholder, A.N. Meenal. So the message from Mr. Meenal is, congratulations to Bosch Limited and the Board of Directors for reporting decent performance in turbulent times. Question number 1. With Maruti exiting diesel vehicles, what will be the impact for Bosch Limited? Is Maruti expected to enter diesel vehicles again? My answer to this question, Mr. Nemal, is the following. Dear Ms. Nemal, your company is strongly positioned in the passenger car segment with gasoline systems, especially in the compact, mid, sedan, and SUV segments. We're also strongly positioned with diesel fuel injection equipment with many passenger car OEMs. While there could be a short-term impact of Suzuki pulling out of diesel cars, the market would stabilize in course of time. For Maruti's plan to re-enter into diesel again, there's no comment from us in this respect so far. Your second question has been, Bharat Stage 6 vehicles, we have indicated we have won many new businesses. What is the annual revenue expectation of the new Bharat Stage 6 businesses post-COVID stabilization in automotive market? I apologize, but Bosch will not give any guidance in regards to future revenue on specific projects with specific customers. Your third question, who are our major customers in the two-wheeler fuel injection? What is the annual revenue in two-wheeler fuel injection? The answer is twofold. In the two-wheeler market, our major customers are Bajaj Auto, TVS, and in respect to annual revenue potential in two-wheeler fuel injection, we cannot share this specifically since we don't disclose such numbers in the shareholder meeting. You have a question number 4. What is your current import content from China? Considering current environment, what is the localization alternative sourcing plan? The answer to this is as follows. The automotive industry has a complex global footprint of component and subsystem sourcing, driven by volume consolidation and competitive costs. The coronavirus pandemic has exposed us to a new challenge of having to streamline our global sourcing footprint as a part of the de-risk strategy. This is not applicable only to imports from China, but our entire global sourcing policy. For instance, according to data from the Auto Component Manufacturing Association of India, the ACMA, a quarter of India's auto parts imports came from China in 2019, including engine and transmission parts. We have relied on China as a global manufacturing base for exporting electric motors, transmission and power electronics for electric cars. China contributed to nearly 10 billion euros out of Bosch's 22.5 billion euro sales in Asia Pacific region last year. We're constantly reviewing our localization plans even before the pandemic. When we find that products have a good value proposition and offers benefit to our customers, we start localizing it. You have a fifth question, Ms. Niemeyer. Due to current global environment, is there potential for any new business for Bosch Limited as alternate to China? Our answer is the following. While the government of India has been stressing on Make in India and vocal for local towards pushing the industrial community into higher localization content, strengthening local manufacturing supported by systematic infrastructure and competence development will be decisive factors. India's maximum dependence on components from China is for the two-wheeler and passenger vehicle industry. Nearly 27% of the 17.5 billion worth of components imports into India comes from China. Chinese imports stretch all the way across the value chain from electronics and electrical parts to mechanical components. There will be a review worldwide for supply chains, which might support a local for local strategies combined with more release flexibilities in international production networks after full recovery of worldwide economy. Our manufacturing vision says we make India a global manufacturing hub. Any opportunity in future will be looked upon. Then you post question number 6. What is the import content for Bharat Stage 6 products, and is it expected to be localized in how many years? Our answer is as follows. We have a majority of powertrain products manufactured in India. Bosch always believed in local for local. We've already localized a few components that were imported. Localization would follow based on business case development. Our manufacturing vision says we make India global manufacturing hub, as I already said, and any opportunity in future will be looked upon. And finally, you've got a 7th question. In electric vehicles, who are the major customers and vehicles are we working with? Also, what is the outlook for electric vehicles in India? Our answer is as follows. We strongly believe that the electrification of vehicles in India will start with 2- and 3-wheelers. We are working with most of the major customers in this area. We're also working with the passenger car OEMs in the electric vehicle area. We expect that by 2030, 20% of the vehicles sold in India would be electric vehicles. Now I come to the questions raised by Rajendra Sabu. So there's a message. I congratulate the Bosch management team for having a first mover advantage and quickly adapting to the changed emission norms. Question number 1. What will the localization content going forward, considering Atma Nirbhar Bharat as promulgated by the Prime Minister of India? Our answer. With the Prime Minister's program of Atma Nirbhar Bharat, the government of India is stressing on Make in India and pushing the industrial community into higher localization content. Strengthening local manufacturing support by a systematic infrastructure and competence development will be decisive factors to make manufacturing in India competitive at a global scale. As I said before, we are constantly reviewing our localization plans even before the pandemic and believe in local for local to reduce supply chain complexities. When we find that products have scaled up and make a good business case to localize, we do localize them. Your question number 2, royalty and technical service fee, 1,908 million rupees, and professional and consultancy charges of 3,681 million rupees need to be controlled. In fact, royalty agreements need to be revalidated as much of the new technology is absorbed. As I mentioned earlier, companies focused on transformation projects to ensure cost competitiveness. With respect to professional and consultancy fees, please note this increase is direct in line with increase in our service income, predominantly coming from R&D projects. The company has incurred engineering services as costs towards these revenues, which resulted in the increase. As regards royalty, we are in line with, and in fact paying lower royalty compared to the OEM and other companies over the years. And finally, you've got a third question. The dividend payout can be increased considering dividend distribution tax is withdrawn. Our answer, Bosch is one of the consistent dividend payout companies, and this year the dividend payout ratio of your company is approximately 47.7%. We have maintained the dividend payout in spite of lower profits during the year. I hope with these answers I could answer the questions by the three written statements. Now over to you, Soumitra.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Straub. So I have the questions from Mr. Rangan, Mr. Patel, Mr. Shastri, and Mr. Bijan Singh Sirmal. So I will start with Mr. Rangan. Mr. Rangan, you have asked several questions from EVIC to dividend, our policy, including details in expenditure expenses. So first one is EV and ICE, we have always maintained in Bosch by 2030 in India, we see a likelihood at best 75% ICE, 25% EV, or it could even be 80% ICE and 20% EV. This is for the year 2030. Regarding dividend and the payout, I think our chairman has already replied to one more shareholder, so I will not reply on that. And we believe that it is fair, including our payout of 47%. Expenses which have been shown in the annual report, we disclose all our expenses very clearly and openly as required by statute, and we also share necessary information both at the annual report as well as our quarterly calls with all the financial analysts which actually get recorded. So with this, Mr. Rangan, I would now go to the questions which have been raised by the next person, Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel, you have asked the following questions that when do you find the promoter plans to take 75%? How do you want to use the cash balance? Why is the company not doing a buyback? And why have we not given dividend or getting more dividend? Now, the dividend matter has already been answered. I would only say for the promoters, 75% or buybacks, we do not disclose this. This has happened in the past. We have done it in a fair, transparent, and professional manner, but we do not either give guidance nor do we talk about it, and only if at appropriate, it will be carried out or not carried out in the future. Regarding our cash balance and bank balance, I will combine your question with a question that Mr. Bijan Sirmal had asked. We use our cash very, very systematically for our CapEx spends, which you have seen have been very decent over the years, and the surplus cash we put in safe and yet optimal yielding instruments. Our cash balance, even during COVID times, has been secure and positive, and you'll be happy to know, as always, your company has been a debt-free company. I go to question number 3 from, so other than that, Mr. Patel, you had a few other questions on EV and Bajaj Chetak. You'll be happy to know that Bosch has been a major partner with Bajaj Chetak electric scooter, and Bosch has given end-to-end solutions for it. We can only talk about these issues after the announcement. Our power tools business in a fragmented market, you'll be happy to know, is the market leader We have good margins, and we have a very successful business which is now getting aided by a complete holistic digital journey that Power Tools division has started. Our Bosch cameras are not just cameras, they are intelligent solutions. You'll be happy to know our video systems are extensively used in all major locations, right from the metro rails to the legislative assemblies and even to the PMO. Our Bosch entire solutions, which we call as building solutions. We are unable to disclose in any division that you have requested for cost and revenues. Those are guidance questions. We thank you for your encouragement on the excellent speech our chairman has given, this being his first chairmanship for the first annual general meeting. And we are very delighted by your endorsement that even during these difficult times, that our focus on CSR has been excellent. Thank you for that endorsement. I now go to Mr. Sadanand Shastri. Mr. Sadanand Shastri, you have asked us multiple questions, and these questions I would now like to break up into, I cannot give you a direct answer, Mr. Shastri, for the inconvenience we have caused on the VC, but you must appreciate that video conferencing during COVID is for your and our benefit because of COVID times. Practically most or all companies are doing, because neither are they allowed, nor is it ethically right to gather together in small places with large numbers. We trust and believe that we can bring you along for the future non-COVID AGMs. Our currency in MIO and TNR are standard. You can understand that 1 million is equal to 10 lakhs, and TNR means 1,000 Indian rupees. So please take it as it is. In relation to solar vehicles, we are not into solar vehicles, but definitely we are into renewable energy, including, you'll be happy to know that 30% of our Biddi plant has renewable energy from our solar plant, and 25% of our Nasik plant. And most importantly, our chairman has read out, by 2020 end, we will be in Bosch India, like Bosch Worldwide, a carbon neutral company, which is a very important statement. Regarding made by Bosch and made for India, your company is doing Make in India for the last 68 years. The government of India is deeply appreciative of Bosch India, and especially Bosch Limited, on its journey of Atmanirbhar Bharat for the last 68 years, including Make in India. Your company believes in localization strongly, and details have been committed by the chairman. Regarding 10-year sales which are static, I would like to just request that in 2018-19, your company had the highest turnover of approximately more than 12,000 crores, and not in 2013. We are working very hard to bounce back to our peaks in the near future. In press conferences, I have already mentioned that while the industry has gone back, automotive industry has gone back by 4 and minimum 4, maybe 5 years from 2018-19 peaks, Bosch Limited would like to come back 1 year before. On Micro Trading Company, the company still exists. We understand your sentiment in relation to Micro being very prestigious for Kannadikas and Bengalurians. We appreciate that very deeply, but I'm sure you will agree that over the years, the way we have transitioned between Micro and Bosch has been a credible way, since we have belonged to our parent, and while having deep roots in India for the last not only 68 years Make in India, but you'll be happy to know Bosch is going to celebrate 100 years in 2022. So we are 98 years in India. Regarding Pribo, we have taken a minority share, and while Pribo is a middle-sized company in Germany who has done joint venture with us, the Prettel company has worked with Bosch company for decades. They are a trusted partner, and we are working with them to further improve our supply chain. Your question on what is the exception item on 7,200 approximately million INR, this translates to about 720 crores. These are exceptional items for EVR, for restructuring, and also for inventory cleanup, mainly for EVR. You'll be happy to know that your company, in a Bosch caring way, by end of August, would have given to more than 1,000 blue-collar workmen a very handsome EVR with future cash flows, which takes care of the Bosch ethics, care, and concern, while also improving the business situation. I would now go to Mr. Shastri's last set of questions on trade receivables and whether the unsecured loans have any chance of bad debts. You will see, Mr. Shastri, over the last many decades, your company has managed inventory and receivables with very high level of prudence. Our bad debt percentages are relatively very, very low and are perhaps in the top quartile across industry. We plan to keep strict control over net working capital, including focusing to see receivables or inventories don't have any major write-off. On membership of the boards to the Bosch companies, we use our management who have the experience and the skill to also work together in a collaborative way. There are 15 Bosch companies in Bosch India, because you have asked what is Bosch India and what is Bosch Limited. Bosch India refers to our 15 companies that we have, and Bosch Limited board and senior management are placed in these different, both from collaboration, governance, ethics, and we have found, and these companies have found, great relevance. There is no conflict of interest. And you have lastly said that I hope that you will take care of minority shareholders to meet you physically. We are all hoping COVID will be over. We assure you, if COVID permitting, we will have our AGM in our headquarters in Bengaluru, like we did last year, but provided COVID is away. I now come to Mr. Bijnan Singh Srimal. Thank you for your questions. And let me give brief answers to them. So, you have welcomed the chairman. Thank you, Mr. Srimal, for your welcoming. And we greatly appreciate your being a substantial Bosch shareholder. I think you hold more than 160. As for 40 to 50 years, we are very grateful for your committed loyalty. Expenses that you've talked about conducting, I'm sure, Mr. Srimal, you will accept that we are not doing it for curtailing expenses, but for our safety, as explained before. In relation to attending the meeting, I've already told that permitting for next year, we hope to have it in our headquarters. In relation to dividend payout for 105 rupees and 47%, already our chairman has explained, so I will not go. Regarding investors' problem, we do take care of investors, but you appreciate that we have to balance both sides on payout, amount of money, including taking care of investors. You have asked regarding the matter on if dividend is not taken out on the share forfeiture. Government rules we are unable to change. However, you'll be happy to know your company works very closely with the government, including Companies Affairs, and always takes up suggestions. And we are deeply focused towards minority shareholder needs and bring suggestions to the table. But finally, it is for the government to take care of necessary things. In relation to a million and not in crore, I have already mentioned this point before. You had requested for a short resume of each director. We would be, our colleagues will take this up and ensure that there are a couple of sentences given, just like our chairman explained. We will also try to highlight in the front pages the details that you requested on email ID for secretary, phone number, to bring higher levels of transparency in the first few pages. In relation to your next set of questions, which were renewable energy and whether we are 100%, I've already answered that. Our factories are greatly, not only Industry 4.0, but also run by renewable energies. You complimented us on the 10 years amazing results. Thank you very much. And then you asked a question whether PAT and other income is more than PAT. Let me give you a data, Mr. Srimal. The PBT for 2019 was 16.6%, that is approximately 17%. And this was against 19% in 2018-19. This despite a market drop of 17%. The PAT in 2019-2020 was 13% versus 13% in 2018-19. This, of course, these numbers are without exceptional items. We have to treat them like to like and apples to apples, and hence I'm giving you a like-to-like number. So I'm sure you will agree that under very difficult circumstances where the GDP degrowth happened in 1920, which reduced to hardly 5%, and we have maintained a PBT of 16% versus 19, and PAT of 13% versus 13%. Your EBIT, you asked whether we are a manufacturing company and whether we are making money on manufacturing. You'll be happy to know, in spite of a deep, sharp fall last year, your EBIT was 11% versus 14% of the previous year, which is an all-time high in the automotive market, both in terms of volumes as also for your company. So these are the numbers which I've given you. These exclude the exceptional items, which I've told that we have done in a very ethical, fair Bosch manner for restructuring. So I would end by answering the question on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Your company is manufacturing for the last 68 years in different states, starting from the state of Karnataka, and your company is 98 years young and will be 100 years. And we believe very strongly in PM's slogan, and we have been living it, and Make in India has been our slogan for 68 years. So with that, I think I have been able to answer all the questions that all our 4 esteemed shareholders have asked Mr. Rangan, Mr. Patel, Mr. Shastri, and Mr. Srimal. Over to you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much for supporting me here and answering our shareholders' questions. I would like now to instruct closing of the e-voting window for electronic voting in about 15 minutes and request the members to complete the voting. The combined results of remote e-voting and the e-voting along with the scrutinizer's report shall be communicated to the BSE Limited and National Stock Exchange of India Limited, where the shares of the company are listed, and will also be placed on the company's website and on the website of CDSL within 48 hours from the conclusion of the meeting. I authorize Mr. Rajesh Parte, the company secretary, to declare the result of the e-voting. I request the moderator to close or to deactivate the e-voting window at 5:15 when the proceedings of the 68th Annual General Meeting shall stand closed. All participants who have completed their vote may log off. And I thank the members for their present and active participation and support extended to the company. With this, Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you, Chairman. So with this, we conclude the 68th Annual General Meeting. Thank you for participation.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman.